Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, I am SocioPsycho, and today we look at Third Eye Crime by Moonshot Games. This is a top-down isometrical view style game, which is puzzle elemented orientated, as well as it wants to be stealth, but doesn't exactly get there. I try to bring you games with the utmost professionalism in reviewing, and sometimes personal feelings may get mixed in there, so this time I'm going to definitely try hard to give you the reasons why this game I feel is bad, and not just be like, oh well, this game is a poopy head. So, let us go into settings. When you go into video settings, there's not much options here for graphic fidelity because the game is very simplistic in its looking. Graphics don't always matter though. Resolution sizes is always nice to have, and you can see full screen. Audio settings, they fail here, but it's just a simple on and off, not a sound slider in case the music or ambient sound was too loud for you. And in nerd settings, you simply just have little extra feats which add basic user interface layout changes. Nothing all that complicated in here, as I'm sure you can see. So, what is the game? Well, it's, like I said, story driven, and there are 8 chapters in the game. I have made it to the 3rd chapter before I found myself just too annoyed or frustrated. Not frustrated because of difficulty, frustrated because of how the game plays, to be able to continue forward. Now, as you can see here, there are blocks that are yellow, and there are stars. On each mission there are medals, which are pretty much just extra achievements to try to hunt for, to get, go without being seen, beat the recommended time, stuff like that. You have to get all 3 of them in order to get a star, which would be perfect. Otherwise, it just symbolizes which one of the medals that you've gotten. And you can have 1 or 2 in each, but to get a star you have to have all 3 on the one playthrough of that mission. So, it is story elemented. And while the story and the music may actually be pretty well done, the story is sort of a compendium of 1920s comic book, side-scroll sliding, pop-up bubbles, and showing you more of a kind of tells a story and unravels as you slide through the game, chapter to chapter. Now, this is nice because it sets an atmosphere, and while the artistic value of the actual game doesn't feel very Renaissance-y of 1920s, the comic book story version does. It sets an atmosphere with the music, which is sax, bass, jazz, and it sets this sort of decent vibe and feeling for you, which is nice. Unfortunately, the music doesn't carry over into the game, which is one problem, and the fact that the music doesn't carry over into the game means that many of the missions you're just going through the mission, and while the missions may be short, it still doesn't carry any of its atmosphere over into the actual game, and that's where some of the main issues come from. The story tries to keep you enthralled, but the issue with that, no matter how enticing the art style is or the atmosphere during the actual side-scroll screen story, it does not carry over into the game. And that is really the biggest issue, because when we look at the game, what we have here is it proclaims itself to be a puzzle stealth game. What does that even mean, you may ask? Well, that's, fairly easy to answer. Obviously, stealth is you try not to get seen or caught by the enemy. And puzzle, you would think different objects in the world. Well, their version of stealth is you start every single mission and you will be seen. Every single mission, you cannot not be seen. You get chased immediately. This is not a stealth game in my mind. A stealth game is where you go through and you play, and you try to avoid the enemy who is pathing and patrolling through the different zones. He's moving around the map rather than standing in one spot looking at you. And you could have an ability maybe to shout or throw a stone or something like this to distract him and move him, but you can't. There are no real elements in the game which add to a stealth feel. This game is a very basic, easiest way to say it, is just a pathing simulator. The enemy has visual bars, and they'll see and show where you're going to go, and the red line is where they're hunting you. Now, there are some slightly different types of enemies in the game. Some have guns, some don't, some are slow, some are fast. But even with these slight differences in characteristic, it doesn't change how the game actually plays, seeing how that every single time you start a mission, you will be hunted, you will be seen by the enemy. The level design in the game is very poorly done. Very poorly done. It takes way too much of a puzzle element rather than a stealth element. When you try to grab them and throw them together, it does not work out well. The fact that you spend the majority of your times always being hunted throws you out of this feeling of a master thief who is stealing artwork or stealing gems or seeking treasure or whatever the case may be, because every time you go into a room, you cannot go through the room without being seen or being chased. How does that convey stealth? It doesn't, and it's stupid that they even try to implement that as a main thing. Are there objects in the game which you can use? Yes, there are a few objects in the game which you are able to use to distract your opponents, but these are items which you only gain on certain missions, and they are consumables pretty much. Once you use these items, you will not be able to use them again. So what it comes down to is not so much stealth and patience and waiting to find and try to look for the way to get around the enemy. What it comes down to is every single map, it comes down to, okay, there's one path, or maybe two paths, which will get me through the map, allowing me not to be captured by the enemy, or killed, or caught. All I have to do is find that path, and I'm good to go. Beyond that, the game doesn't have a stealth element. It's a pathing element. Like I said, any items you get inside the game, they may travel with you to the next map in case you want to hold on to it later, but they don't really help you out. It even says itself that every mission is beatable without the usage of any of the items. But when you have to go through every single map being seen and being chased, it does not have a stealth element. Does it have a puzzle element? Yes. It's safer to say that this game is a puzzle pathing simulator rather than a stealth puzzle game. You do not go towards laser beams that will trigger an alarm and try to deactivate them. You do not use items like stones or yells or bird calls or whatever to try to get past enemies. There are no items in the game where you can hide or hide in shadows or hide under a box or different variations. Every single map you start off and it's immediately chased. That is not stealth when 5 seconds into the game, oh, I'm being chased again. All it is just a pathing simulator around the enemy to try to get to the exit. It's not fun. I mean, that's my personal opinion right there, but blurted out. I did not have fun with this game. It's not so much the fact that it's annoying, but the fact that you pick the game up because you're like, okay, sweet, it's going to be a little stealthy, it's going to be a little enjoyment, I'm going to try to find the right way to get through this, and what it comes down to is, well, you have an option of finding the way they want you to go through it because the enemy doesn't path. You have to find the exact way to manage through the game. Does it have a story to it? Yes, it does have a story to it. Does it have good music? Yes, it does have good music. But the music and the feeling of the story don't transmit into the game. The way the game actually looks doesn't transmit back into the story upon the atmosphere and how it feels because the graphics are so bare bone. And then you have how the mechanics actually work, and it's one giant pathing puzzle game rather than a stealth and patience with puzzle elements in it. Now, this may be interesting to you, and you may find it exciting or enjoyable, and if you do, then so be it. That is your personal preference. But I cannot recommend this game. Not because the mechanics don't work, because what it's going for certainly works in the way it wants, but how they set the game up, I feel, does not work overly well as a game concept on itself. They should have went more stealth, less puzzle. More stealth, less mandatory pathing. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot recommend this game at all, and if you still wish it, it's on Steam, available for $5. and I'll see you next time.